Thanks, Ryan. Thank you for having us, and thanks everybody for being here. This is Dr. Stacy Feiner. I originally hail from Boston, and I've had a very illustrious, circuitous path to where I am today. I am a coach for business owners and athletes, and I got my start really when I was doing night watch way back when I was a camper. That's what brings me to coaching.
And I'm so excited to have everybody here because, Stacy, you and I went on that previous interview that we had talked about mental blind spots. How the heck do we figure out who we are and what we want and why? And then there's a bunch of other people that actually rely on us and actually making sure that we know what we want and why so we can interact with them the ways that we want to get where we want to go. And I'm very excited to have everybody here and I appreciate everybody's time. And these are all people that you've worked with, Stacy, and that are willing to share the before and after the hard work of doing the introspective work that we all know we need to do. So we're just going to go round robin and we're just going to take kind of a quick overview on company, role, ownership structure, and then we're going to dive into some further topics. But I'm going to start with you, Levi, because you're up in the top right-hand corner of my computer screen. So company, what you're doing, ownership structure, and then how long you've been in the business.
So Brandon and I own 4 companies, and I operate one of them called Course Transfer. It's a trucking company. It's located in Reedsburg, Wisconsin. I've been doing it for 18 years, something like that, 19 years, 17 years, something like that. I grew up in it. I didn't want to have anything to do with trucking as a 44-year-old or a 15-year-old, but here I am, and I'm enjoying it.
You can wake up just breathing trucking right when you right when you grew up.
Right. I think I'll save that story for another time. Anyway, I partnered with Brandon, and
I'll tee right up to Brandon then. So Brandon, a little bit of your background, your role, and again, maybe a little bit over the overview of the role that you have in the businesses.
Sure. Thank you, Ryan. I am from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and at an early age, my sense of adventure was spawned by my grandparents, my 2 grandfathers being larger than life. One was a U.S. Navy veteran of World War II and has tons of stories about being on the U.S. Baltimore. And the other one was an entrepreneur himself, had a butcher shop and a fuel station, like a grocery store, but he also was a pilot. And so going flying with him was incredible. And which led to me going to the EAA every year, which for anyone that doesn't know is the Experimental Aircraft Association in Oshkosh. It's the cool thing ever. And so from there, I knew I was to be an engineer. I became an engineer, worked at Hormel Foods for 2 years. And then there was this opportunity to start a family. There was an opportunity to join a family business and began a new company with Levi and his other brother, Luke. And so we've been doing that. Currently, I manage one of the trucking companies in the area where I work. And there is a logistics company and a brokerage, and then we have a tank wash. And then, like Levi said, he manages the other company. And so the group of companies I manage is in Janesville, Wisconsin.
And for the listeners, all companies have an average age. Or was there kind of an order of the inception of the companies?
Well, so the family business was Lowell C. Hagen Trucking. That was started in 1979. And then, so if you fast forward to 2004, January 1st of 2004 was when the new family business started, which was Levi, the other brother Luke, and myself.
Got it. Awesome. Appreciate it, Sharon. Okay, and then we'll move on to Connor.
Awesome. I'm Connor Krasancic. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm the CEO and founder of Good Wolf Marketing. And we're a full-service digital marketing agency focusing on web design, branding identity, and social media management. And we've been in business for about 3 years now. I'm now the sole owner. I had a 50-50 business partner for a couple years. By the beginning of 2022, we restructured, so I'm now the sole owner and I'm a former Division I athlete. And actually what I'm doing now, I started my first entrepreneurial venture when I was about 12 years old, focusing on very similar tasks and deliverables that I'm championing today. So what social media management on Facebook and MySpace was in 2010 when I was about 12, 13 years old, that's what I was focusing on. So it's interesting to see how life can come full circle.
That's awesome. Probably not doing a lot of MySpace ads these days, but
No, unfortunately not.
the strategies are the same.
Yes.
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing, Connor. Rachel, to you.
Okay, Rachel Wallis-Andreasson. Our family business is called Wallis Companies. We're based out of, our home office is in Cuba, Missouri. Started in 1968 when my dad got out of the service, and he got into gas stations when his dad died when he was 12 years old and needed to start supporting the family. So a very cool American entrepreneur story there. And obviously grew up in the business. I was born the year after the business started. I have 3 younger brothers. We are the second generation. We have 11 individuals in the third generation, and my dad died in 2001, and so 21 years ago. And since then, my mom has been running the business. And so when we started in 1968 with one convenience store, we had, 3 to 4 employees, and now we're over 1,100 employees through a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Stacy came into my life through a nationwide search in 2013 when I was doing a succession plan between second generation and first generation being my mom. And after 24 years of working in the business, I left as the CEO after 8 months and came to work full-time at our synagogue in St. Louis, where we all grew up. And so today I'm the executive director. However, I am still a shareholder on the board of directors, helping with governance and bringing in the third generation into our family business.
That is awesome. And there's so much to unpack right there. The fact that you can be an owner and not have a job at the business. And that's going to be fantastic to unpack. All right. Well, this is going to be a lot of fun. So what we're going to do, just for the listeners to kind of tee this all up, because haven't had an interview where there's 6 of us on the call like this. So we're going to try and make it easy where if you're listening in, you can understand who's talking. But then also we're going to go through essentially 4 big topics and categories. We're going to go around the group, and then we're going to be able to unpack each of those. And then people will be rallying back and forth because Stacy's been in the intimate settings where everybody's figured out who we are, right? And so for the first question, and I'll kind of tee it up to you, Stacy, and then we can go, and maybe if you want to pick the person, either way it works, but is before coaching, Stacy, you and I talked a lot about trying to figure out who we are and why. I mean, I even saw that you connected with Bo Burlingham, and it's like, this is not an easy task to figure out, right? Like, it's not just sit in your, living room and just do hard work in your head. It's like, there's an actual process. We talked about the mental blind spots and then understand the stakeholders. And so before coaching, I think, so many people have been on this show. It's like, why, like what led you to want something more? Like, what was missing? Kind of get some context behind, what was the personal struggle you were dealing with? Why did you think you couldn't do it on your own that led you to the point that you reached out? So Stacy, I don't know if you want to add any context to that, but then we can kind of tee up the first person. We'll just keep going around the group.
Well, I would love to. Thank you, Ryan. Everybody has a different temperament. So, when you say, why would you want to have, coaching or need somebody, you said, why do people need to have somebody else's help? Well, that's a bias that suggests that most business owners or most people don't have other people's help. And I think that's the first bias really just to kind of crack, because we don't do anything alone. I mean, sometimes I think of J-Lo, she's front and center stage, but she has a whole entourage. I mean, she might have a great voice, but she can't do what she does on stage unless she has a backup band and a set crew and, people who are carrying the luggage, and helping her put on her makeup. So none of us do it alone. And so I think that's the first thing. And I would say about all of the folks on this call, I mean, every one of them showed up not having a problem that they didn't think they could fix. They all showed up having a problem they didn't want to have anymore and were insistent on finding the fix. And, sometimes conventional thinkers or conventional advisors, sometimes, financial agreements and legal contracts can actually when used to try and solve these kinds of emotional dynamics or emotionally charged issues, can backfire. Families can be destroyed, and money and wealth can be drained. So I would just say that everybody who's on the call was seeking to grow. And yes, there are times where you have to take steps back. You have to look at aspects of your life, because no business problem is a single problem. Every business problem is made up of a dozen problems. And so you have to untangle where all of the intersections are, which sometimes is just an analysis or an audit, but oftentimes it goes back to, what behaviors or decisions or reactions happened sequentially before that started a problem that got out of your control. And I'll just punctuate there. I mean, I think actually anyone, Brandon and Levi, maybe you could start, because
let's start there.
Yeah.
And one of you guys want to take it? And so basically, when I was laughing, one of the things that Stacy said is legal documents. So you didn't call an attorney to go figure out all the emotional stuff. That's probably not a bad idea. So, but like, Brandon, let's start with you. I saw you kind of raise a hand. What was the challenges and the mental blockers or the things that you couldn't figure out that led you to looking for some sort of outside help?
You better fess up, Brandon. I'm here.
I would say, in a simple way, I was feeling exhausted and drained, and so I knew that in order to get past that point, I had to level myself up. So I really sought out Stacy, or a coach, to level me up so that I could have some new perspective and understand what barriers needed to be removed in order for me to get my mojo back, my energy back, which, in short, I mean, that's really what it was. And so we engaged in a process and made a lot of ground.
What were you exhausted with? So when I hear exhausted, that's something that led to you being exhausted, again, that you couldn't figure it out on your own. So I'm just kind of curious, was it like what was manifesting in the business that led you to that feeling?
You better be honest, Brandon. I'm listening.
That's awesome. So I would say I have a bunch of initiatives going on with the different things that we have in our company. And I was feeling like I was the baton holder and bringing the energy every day and responsible for it. And so that's tiring. And so I needed to find some relief. And the relief came in the form of different perspectives, how to take the people that we have in place now and put them in positions and delegate better, put them in positions to succeed for themselves. And for me to look at that situation differently, put some more structure and organization around it.
Stacy, so you looking to jump in there?
I would just add that the way that it got to Levi is, Brandon did call. He wanted to level up his leadership. And, I remember the conversation and the three things that we pointed to about leadership. And, one was just becoming more familiar with kind of some of the leadership models, because you had brilliant ideas, a ton of energy, you're a visionary. And I think sometimes you felt like your ideas were maybe, out of left field, or they weren't, is it valid? Can I lead like this? And so part of it was just, grounding you in the fact that, these are leadership models, and you sound like you're a natural. You intuitively know these things, and then we kind of put some perspective and models around it. And so that was very validating, and that shifted everything, right? I mean, when you get validated and you hear that, you are grounded in something, that's an immediate shift of perspective, and that solves one big problem. You're not crazy. You're not making this up, or actually you're very genius because you discovered it without doing the research. So, you're an organic leader. All of you are. Well, Rachel, you were trained in corporate, right?
Well, so all of us, I set the stage, I guess, for going to college and working outside of the family business before joining the family business. So I did work for two other corporations before I came back. And and I guess in 2001, after my dad died, who was really obviously the leader and the founder of the company, 2 years later, after several more acquisitions, and my brothers all having gone to college, worked in another place, now all joined the business. So now first and second generation are there. we in 2 years realized we needed help. I mean, there were so many family dynamics, so many emotions. As a family business, you're wearing a family hat, an ownership hat, a management hat, and sometimes those lines get so blurred, and and you realize you need help. So we started with family governance consultants in 2003. Fast forward to a succession plan that I had a 5-year runway to succeed my mom, and I was in a local president's council group, and all these other CEOs recommended you need to find your own executive coach to make sure you shore up any gaps, start with the relationships with your future shareholders. And I mean, Stacy was like a gift in my life because I was on the edge with the dynamics going on in our family, and she helped me sort it out, see things that I could not see. And it was extremely valuable. And it's a lot of hard work. You have to put the work in, and sometimes you don't want to do the work because it's emotional. And, but it was the best. I mean, today, the best gift of my life.
That's awesome, Rachel. So when you say on edge, and you kind of mentioned like emotions, but like, what was on edge was it like concepts? I mean, a little bit of context. I mean, to be able to transition a business between generations, you have to have a lot of governance and roles figured out, and like the equity value, like there's a lot of stuff that has to be clarified. Like, what was on edge that led to the emotions rolling around?
I think it's the emergence of, all my brothers and my mom and I were all in management, but it was really hard to put on the ownership hat. And then you always felt offended by the family hat and not getting the support. So it's the convergence of those 3 different hats that you have to wear, and not having clear communication or clear boundaries around what each of those roles are, even though you're one person.
If I could just remind Rachel of a particular, like an impasse, an insight that we had. I have 2 kids, and they were young, much younger when I was coaching back then with Rachel. And I remember I would hear the kids screaming downstairs. Olivia would scream that Zachary was hurting her, and I'd run downstairs, and maybe Zachary was the bad boy or whatever, but I couldn't address him because Olivia was all undone. So I had to focus on Olivia first. I had to calm her down, and then I was going to go address the problem, which was, well, let's just say it was Zachary. And I remember sharing that analogy with Rachel, that there were times where she would see, like the rest of us, something that isn't right or isn't fair or it's just not the way you think the project or the decisions should be made, or maybe somebody was naughty. And Rachel, in her best form, would want to make things right and bring everybody up to a new awareness. And not everybody wanted new awareness, nor did they want Rachel's. So she would get very undone. And so the first thing not the first thing, but one of the things was, Rachel, you have to kind of, you can be as emotional as you want. I love emotion. And you don't have to correct your natural reactions. But when you are going to address the group, you have to, you all know this, you have to find more reason. So you're allowed both. Nobody has to be, in control when they're on the phone with me. But when you start planning how you address others. And so, Rachel and I call that, getting off the ledge. Don't go on the ledge, because then you can't nobody can pay attention to the behaviors that you think need to be corrected, because everybody's focusing on how upset you are. So I loved that. And I used that, I learned that with Rachel. I learned it with my kids. I applied it to Rachel, and now I use it in all of my coaching. I hear myself talking about that with others.
There's so much emotions, and I went through the same thing with the hats. Like, what hat are we wearing? And I think that's very imperative that we all understand that, because that kind of gets into the stakeholder ecosystem of understanding how to deal with everybody and the different motives that people have. So I want to go before you I want to go back to Levi, because of your guys. Was Brandon legit with how he described why he reached out to Stacy? Let's fact check Brandon first.
I think he was legit, but I wonder if he was diplomatic. I feel like part of, or largely what drove, I can't speak for Brandon, but it seemed like we were fighting about how to proceed. We took over a couple of businesses that, if you notice, the brother that Brandon mentioned is not also in the meeting. He exited the business, and Brandon and I took over the part that he was running, and we, got up and did the hard work and push and fight and cajole and meet, all that stuff. And there came to a point where we were struggling, and he wanted to kill me, and he didn't want to kill me.
That is definitely less diplomatic, Levi.
Hey, we wanted to kill each other, and I think he was absolutely fed up because I was hitting him over the head every single day with the same instrument, with the same message, and it was like, just stop. And
what was the impasse on? Was it operationally, or was it like strategically what to do to the business? What kind of money to take out? Oh, yes. There's a big blender.
The thing, I mean, I don't know how telling it is, but the particular thing that was the camel's straw that broke the camel's back was about reducing expenses, right? It was like minimizing expenses at all and every cost, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that it, Brandon?
Yeah. My theory, so we just had two different styles, and my theory was we cannot reduce overhead expenses anymore, so we have to grow the business to cover the overhead expenses we have.
There you have it.
And it's so simple when you lay out the problem right there with no family, with no people. It's just like it's a binary decision, right?
Right.
So we'll definitely be unpacking that. So Connor, how about you? What led to the need to reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So my story is a little bit different in terms of the athletic background. And one of Stacy's mental blockers, the injury, trauma, and addiction, pretty much sums it up and was the beginning of it. So I was a college athlete. I was playing quarterback at Ohio University, and I had my aspirations was to be in the NFL. It was a big goal, but I believed that I could get there. And then my first spring game, I was a redshirt sophomore. I suffered my fifth concussion and a subarachnoid hemorrhage. And shortly after that, actually on my 21st birthday, is when the doctors told me no more physical sports for the rest of my life. So that was tough. And for most, that was just a sport. And the story that Stacy and I go back to a lot is it was my life. And when I was playing quarterback at OU during the day, I would actually unlock the windows to the weight room. And when other people were going out at midnight on the weekends, I was climbing through and breaking into our fitness center to work out, to go up and watch film. But it consumed my life. It was the only thing I thought about. So after I lost that, it was many years of poor decisions, lack of clarity, and then in terms of the other mental blockers of anxiety and larger issues, I was having panic attacks. I was in a dark place. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but absolutely I was. It was a tough spot, and Stacy came into my life and met me exactly where I was at, gave me clarity and the confidence I needed to find something to pursue and really tap back into that athletic mindset and the work ethic that I knew I had. I just needed focus and a path to go down.
That's amazing, Connor. I appreciate you sharing, man. And I can't, just as a small comment on that, I was never like a D1 athlete at all. But I'll tell you what, the amount of entrepreneurs, and this is really tied into this entire discussion, the amount of entrepreneurs that have been on this show who after they have sold and they didn't want certain things, they end up in that similar position that you have talked about. I mean, I had a guy that he literally said he sold and he had a panic attack on the plane and they had to drag him off the plane, even though he made $20 million. So that identity infusion with what your role is. And I think that's one of the interesting things about coaching is helping you understand. That's kind of one of the interesting mental blockers of what does all this mean to me as an identity? And so as we're kind of moving on, and unless we want to keep unpacking a little bit of what people reached out to, but I was thinking about going towards what were the mental blockers that you were, because again, hindsight 2020 now, I don't know if everybody could articulate per se, what the mental blockers were when you engaged with Stacy, but it's more of what were they and what was the process of becoming more clear? Because everybody used, I think, the word clear or clarity. Stacy, I don't know if you want to comment on that before.
It's so funny
I
because
can shake it back and forth. I can tell.
as some, maybe I'm some things I'm so clear about when I think about the work that the relationships that I have with everybody on the call. Some things are so clear, like, being on the ledge and remembering that, you need the model, just be, whatever the things I've already shared. But the mental blockers, I maybe I'm too close to it, but I think that's a really, that's a hard question. What I could say, and maybe I don't know what the rest of you are thinking, but I would say the easier way to answer it is what were you wanting that you couldn't achieve, and then what was in the way? Maybe that's, I don't know if you guys are like, I don't know how to answer that question, but I think all of them were.
Brandon's
go ahead. Sorry, I wasn't even looking. Sorry, Brandon.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, I think clarity is a good word. When I finished and then you interjected the last time, there was something there that I didn't say. And of course, I realized as you were talking about it, was just taking away some of the questions and of doubt that you have in your mind releases the pressure and releases the stress that you don't even know you're working on behind the scenes. And so that absolutely was a function of my exhaustedness. And I think when I look at your podcast, it's not the growth podcast, it's the intentional growth podcast. And so I think there's so much there that wraps into the work that we've done, which is finding out our purpose. Why were we put on this earth? And then using that purpose to lead in a way, provided you're wanting to lead in a way that puts your full weight of your purpose behind it, behind what you're doing. And so that's the clarity that I would say. Putting your full weight.
I love that.
Yeah, and when you look back, Brandon, to that time that you first had that, right before you first started talking to Stacy, like, what was it? Because I caught the you didn't really know you were carrying that much stress and doubt and anxiety. Is that one of the things that you now have more clarity on? Are there other things that you're like, oh my God, that had you not engaged like in some sort of outside help, you wouldn't have been able to uncover that and gotten a new perspective?
I think Stacy helped facilitate that. So I think maybe Rachel said, and I think of Stacy, or the importance of having a coach is to establish cadence and a drumbeat and facilitate and do the thing, uncover the things that you don't even know are barriers or are in your way. So one of the things, and I didn't say this, but this is true, that reasons that I came to Stacy as well when I said leveling up my leadership, I sort of felt like I was underperforming for my business partner, Levi, as well. So the businesses that were in Janesville where I'm at, that I'm supposed to be managing, were not performing the way that I even wanted them to perform. And so increasing your confidence, reducing your doubt, bringing clarity, yes.
Awesome. I'll tee it right back up to you, Levi. So when you're thinking about like the hindsight 2020, like, and going back to Stacy's question about like what was in your way. So what was it, the conversations and kind of just not getting alignment, or like what was in why were you willing to engage, and what do you realize now back with yourself that would have been big hurdles had you not?
I wanted what I wanted, and the avenue to get what I wanted was a one-way street. And the street led to Stacy. So it was kind of like, well, you can sit here and cry and be mad, Levi, or you can walk along this path. So I did it because it was in my own interest. But I think the blinder thing, I'm not sure if that's the word that was used.
Yeah, my mental blockers, blinders, your perspective that's different.
The mental blocker was that I was at like this place of like rage. I was so angry and frustrated. I don't know about angry. I was just so frustrated. And the frustration was dialed so high that, I mean, I was just chasing my own tail and not being effective or productive much at all, especially with Brandon. I mean, it was like, I don't know that I could look at him and say like, no, I don't want to drink your water, like without, like some kind of a fight. You're like, oh, the cup is way too high on the counter. What are you doing? Crazy.
I love when I can just tell just the fact that you just clearly say it like that, but you're not emotional right now about that. I've been in that like.
Yeah, it
was not pretty.
No, it was a great journey, and so every time Levi and I would have a discussion about his frustration with me or with something. This is the unique thing about Levi, and probably differentiates a frustrated person who it doesn't work for and a frustrated person who it does work for. So I think Levi, he was speaking for himself. So he was like really amped up. So you can't be effective when you're really amped up. So he's right. It was in his best interest not just to follow the path, but not to be so amped up so he could be more effective. But again, there was a deep curiosity, like very philosophical. And, sometimes I think sometimes when we look back, Levi, it was like, well, you were just having the conversation because it was interesting, right? It was curious. And he would push he would push buttons, and I think I could stay the path with you, Levi, because I really believed in you. Like, I also had to be mature, and so I enjoyed the insistence that you had that I keep showing up, or I felt like I had to keep showing up in a particular way to answer your earnest questions. And eventually it worked. I did. And we had several, we can look back and look at several moments where, we were thinking about something differently. And then when we realized, oh, we're saying the same thing, but differently. Anyway, I think for not every frustrated person does it work for, but a philosophical, interested, even the self-interest is a worthy purpose. So
I feel like the self-interest part for people that are kind of on the fence, I got dragged into it. I didn't want to do it. And I think it was proposed. Brandon proposed it at first, and I was like, "Fuck no!"
Yes, I can only imagine most people on the listening in would probably feel
totally
the same.
Didn't want to do it, and then strong-armed, and here we are, and this is way calmer than.
Oh, and you got everything you wanted.
That's a good reason to do something.
And more.
Don't oversell it,
and
right?
more, because, well, I will say, I will oversell it, because you got. So when this is interesting. So my coaching has evolved. Rachel, I started with many years earlier than Connor and Levi and Brandon. And so now I'm working with a thing called the ecosystem. And essentially there are 23 dynamics, universal dynamics in that system that every business owner needs to see and navigate in order to have a healthy system and an easy process, right? I mean, it's not without its challenges, but what Levi and Brandon did so earnestly and together was they didn't make a decision if it negatively impacted the ecosystem. And I learned that intimately and intensely with the two of them, which now is baked into my process. So they wouldn't make a decision if it was going to hurt the family, or if it was going to, undermine the profitability or the legacy of the wealth engine, the business, or if it was going to drain their money. And
I want to get to, before we start talking about how the decision making is different now that you have a different perspective, I want to go to Rachel and Connor about what your challenges were, and if it's the less clarity or less low resolution. I'll start with you, Rachel. I mean, I have so many questions because of how many stakeholders you had in your situation. But going back, I don't know what was the kind of the pushing points of the lack of clarity that didn't allow you to move forward.
Well, I think it was just more, we have the second generation coming up. We had my dad that had founded the company and been there for 30 years before he passed. And I felt like philosophically we were moving from a business that was owned by a family to a family that was running a business. And it was a psychological shift because we had relied on professional management for so long and had so many systems set up to retain and attract high quality talent. So it was that shift, and at the same time, when you're working in a family business and you're working in it, I mean, you have a full-time job. So you have this full-time job, but you also know you have to work on family governance. And at the same time, you also have to work on your relationships with each of your family members, because you establish these patterns that keep, it's like hitting your head on a wall. You see each other in a certain light, or you know what they're going to say, and you're already arguing about it. So I totally relate to Levi and Brandon's situation. And sure Stacy got like 10 of her ecosystems just from all of our family fight that she had to witness and give us, a future look. I mean, she basically said, what is the ideal thing that you want to be doing? And it doesn't have to be in this business. And it turns out, hindsight 2020, we are all doing something that is more purposeful in our life, because none of us in the second generation are working full time in the family business. Yeah.
Super interesting. So that kind of clarity, Rachel, what was it that you weren't able to accomplish before? Was it the fact that you wanted something else, but you felt stuck and you just weren't, like, you were having like those repeat conversations like Levi and Brandon were talking about, or?
Yeah, I felt like, the company, the business, we've been so fortunate that it was such a huge foundation that my dad laid, that our company was successful. And because of that, a company kept growing. But we as a family working together and trying to maintain family harmony, which was, so important to all of us, which I can say today we all have in a much better way than we ever had before. But it was knowing that something was wrong with the way that the shareholders were operating, the governance was operating. So it was needing that help from an outside person, because we couldn't get past ourselves to solve our own problems.
And what shifted that allowed you to then be able to get to that productive discussion?
Well, I think just Stacy's specific coaching. I mean, she would, observe these meetings. She would say, you need to lean in more. You don't react to every pothole. Be curious about what they're saying. I know you don't agree with what they're saying, but find out why they're saying that.
I remember that.
Go deeper. Yeah. So it was the coaching. I wasn't getting coaching from anybody. I think that's the other thing as a family member. You don't get coaching. And when it comes from, my mom was my supervisor, and it's muddled. And so I needed somebody that I knew was in my court, that had my back, that would tell me the hard stuff. And I trusted Stacy that if I did what she said, and it wasn't always easy, and I would tell her sometimes, like, I know what you're saying and it's logical to me, but I emotionally cannot do that right now. I am so hurt. I cannot, but I'm going to put that in my notes, and I'm going to try to get there, soon, but I can't do it today.
Yeah, I can relate to that, where the emotion just clouds all the like, it's like where you're like, my analogy is where, like, when your hands feel like they're 2,000 pounds and all you have to do is write an email, and all you want to do is just walk. You just can't get yourself to do it, even though logically it should be so easy. So Connor, like, I'm curious because, with you and in the story you just were sharing, not a ton of stakeholders, but there's a lot of battle of like reinventing yourself. I went through that at an earlier age too. What was it that you were looking to accomplish that how is your perspective different now when you look back to when you first had the conversation with Stacy?
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, a few years back, I knew I needed help, but I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. And I recently read this article about the difference between a coach, a mentor, and a therapist, and what they're meant for. So coaches for short-term growth, the achievement of a specific goal. Mentors are for long-term growth, a personal, more organic relationship to provide insights and advice for long-term ambitions. And then therapists to really heal whatever is in your past, whatever is holding you back, help you shed that. And I think with Dr. Stacy, we've evolved through each of these three relationships. I think we began more on that therapy level, and she helped me gain the emotional awareness, shed my false identity, get over the trauma, and really helped me eliminate the anxiety and the self-doubt that I had. And it was extreme. I mean, my confidence was at a 1 out of 10. But now, she gave me the confidence to go all in on my business, and really helped me feel like a quarterback, like an elite athlete again. And now the relationship we've had over the past couple years after we got past some of those initial mental blockers is more in that peak performance phase. And I'm not sure if anybody has seen Billions. I'm sure some listeners have, but she really has been my Wendy Rhodes. It's goat show. But I mean, that's Dr. Stacy is really, that's probably the best analogy. And I think
Wendy Rhodes, I love it.
Than a Wendy Rhodes. Yeah. So that's really, I think, the relationship that we've had. And and where we're at now. But really what makes Stacy so special is she can wear those three hats so well.
I learned two incredible things from Connor that make me better for the likes of Brandon, Levi, and Rachel, who are running, businesses. But what I learned from Connor's athlete mind is, and I definitely coach my business owners to do this because it's changed the game. So Connor, we would find insights, right? I would serve him an insight, right? It was clear as day, just as the one I had with Rachel. Like, get off the ledge, So, of course, the insights we find together, but I crystallize them, and then that's my job, and I serve something really clear. And he would, number one, he would thank me for it. Now, this is not because I got credit. It's because he appreciated me. And this is a relationship. This is a very intimate relationship. I am not at arm's length. I'm not an executive coach who pops in and pops out. I've become a part of your life. I'm an interloper. And so he appreciated me. And when I was appreciated, I could give. I wanted to give so much more. And that made me a better athlete. The second thing with an insight is he would thank me for it. He would use it, which of course, that's brilliant, of course. And then he would reference it all the time. Remember you said that? Remember we came up with that? Remember how you said that? So, I'm butchering this analogy to football, and Connor laughs, but he knows I know what I'm talking about, is he wouldn't lose ground. He'd gain those 10 yards and he would not lose it. And then he'd take another 10 yards, another 10. Every insight was another 10 yards. And so, and then he got there.
I want to tee up a question for the group, and raise your hand or we can figure out how we want to tackle this. But I think one of the things that those 10 yards and to see that progress has a lot to do with once you can understand the problem, you can label it and then do something about it, which is kind of the whole shifting of perspective. One of the things that I've found difficult in my life, but also people that I've come across, were getting vulnerable enough with someone to share the shit that's actually wrong, so that way you can see what's going on and then change it. And there's that whole how do you get over from there? Because you need something, you don't know what it is, and you can fix it once you label it. I don't know if someone wants to take that and say, okay, how did you guys go? Brandon, you want to jump right on that?
Yeah, sure. I think that it's relatively natural after you get started. You just need some momentum. And so we are human and we're highly capable, but we live in nature. And in nature, the rules are taking the path of least resistance. So even the people that are leaders and are pushing hard, there's certain parts of your life where because maybe Levi's in my ecosystem, maybe I allow myself to be lazy in how I interact with him, or I allow a family element to allow me to be lazy, as opposed to doing the hard work when Levi's proposing something to me to say, that's how I want to respond, but that's not the correct mechanical way to respond, because I need to level myself up. I need to respond in a business manner that's good for our sustainable profit, and it's good for our ecosystem. And so I think it's grinding. It's getting in, working on the things you need to work on.
So Brandon, what's interesting about how you described that is, I don't when I think about how level of almost enlightened sounds too grandiose, but it's the level of observer of yourself that you can get to, where you said that you got lazy potentially in your relationship with Levi, which manifests itself in a different kind of working relationship. You wouldn't say that unless you had progress, right? So just the fact that you're able to say that is proving the fact that you're able to label it and then do something about it. And I'm just kind of curious, as you watch your guys' interactions, how else did that manifest itself? Because what did you do about that circumstance that you just identified?
Well, to go back to the vulnerability comment, I think you're not going to find that stuff out unless you are allowing yourself to be vulnerable. But then I think you said, how do you get there to find that out? I think it's through the work and through the growth, through the continual, through someone like Stacy facilitating the process. And I can't speak for Levi, but I definitely know for myself that I feel like it's a place where I am interacting with him in a better way that I should be interacting with my business partner, regardless of if he's family or not family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any, like, because I know I see some heads nodding as far as like, it's kind of this whole concept of labeling where like once you have the blind spot uncovered, it's more of like, okay, now I can label this and do something about it. Anybody else have a similar experience to that they'd like to share?
Let's see. So, well, I think I'm going to jump into what Dr. Stacy, why it's so easy to talk to her is I think you just feel psychologically safe with her, and you know that you need to jump out of your comfort zone to level up. And Stacy, just her approach to meeting you where you're at, you want to grab her hand and jump to that next level. But I also think it's complete and brutal honesty. I know, especially at the beginning of our conversations, I had two options: either hold back a little bit and only grow, a few steps over the next few weeks, or lay it out all on the table and be fully transparent. And that's what I chose to do. I think it took me maybe a couple calls, but once I did, it's what Dr. Stacy and I call a breathing room. Like there felt like the biggest weight off of my shoulder, and no matter what it was, she wasn't gonna judge me for whatever I brought up. She's gonna say, okay, that's a data point. Now let's dig into that, figure it out, and get past it.
Well, is it a little bit of like quit lying to yourself? Like we just kind of gotta lean in and do some of the hard work.
Absolutely.
I think, Connor, too, and this is true for all of us, and I also think it's true for me with you. I mean, I'm pretty idiosyncratic. I mean, I think I am a little bit idiosyncratic, and so all of you have to, you see me, and you see me make mistakes. I stand corrected a lot. I've definitely matured and become more seasoned over the years. You let me take chances with you. And again, this thing with, what Connor was describing is about, being honest is almost nothing I've ever heard in my lifetime working with people who are earnest about growth. Nothing is so intolerable or unacceptable. So there's almost nothing you could say that would be unacceptable. But I do get frustrated, and I've yelled, and I like to be seen as an ass kicker. I don't want anybody to think that they're not getting their ass kicked. But there's that reverence, it's a bit of reverence that, you are heroes. If you're paying taxes and you're employing people, that qualifies you as a hero. And so then I owe it to you, it's in quotes, to be the sharpest tool in your shed. And so to Connor's point,
I want to take that, Stacy, and then and also tie that back into Rachel. I saw you nodding, and as Connor was telling his story too about, off the ledge, like how did your interactions with your family members change as you started learning what behaviors or patterns or what you wanted was more clear?
Well, they changed because, Stacy would come to our meeting and she would, to be specific, I like to take notes in my computer because I can't read my own handwriting. So she'd be like, put the computer down and just listen and ask questions. So she observed me. She saw the triggers that were happening. She coached me through it. And I guess what I was thinking about when Connor was talking is that, I did do a nationwide search to find an executive coach for me. And it was down to 3 people. And when I talked to Stacy on the phone and said, here's my issues, and just vomited it out in 20 minutes. And when she insightfully regurgitated it to me in 5 minutes and then added her own perspective, I'm like, oh my God, I have found my person. And I just think that no matter who your coach is, you have to trust them. I mean, you're investing in your coach, and if you don't want to give 100%, then you shouldn't be with that person because you're missing the opportunity. So,
and whoever wants to take this, and what I get so curious about is like when I went through kind of my own, like I'd say a muddied process like this, it was like, hey, now that I understand more about myself, what I want, then I can interact with other people a little bit better. Like, what a concept, right? And so, how did the relationships around you with family members or coworkers, how did those dynamics change as you guys were working on yourself? Anybody want to take that first?
It's not really this elegant, glamorous answer. I mean, as the process unfolded, and I think we started to work more productively with each other. So I think, and it wasn't like a nice smooth line, it was like this and up and down and up and down. As the process it's not linear. It's this up and down thing. Anyway, the relationships with coworkers, relationships with each other in general has improved and softened. And maybe that's like the critical, most accurate part of it is that it's softened. It's just lost its edge, and there's more. You give people when you hang up or say goodbye, you don't end it under your breath with like "fuck you, I hate you." Not that I ever did that, but
no, not you.
That's a little sarcasm there.
But you start to give each other the benefit of the doubt again, and you start to want to help and want to be productive.
It's so interesting because we at our business we talk about there's three things that a lot of entrepreneurs want: create wealth, enjoy work, and make an impact. And if you're not doing one of those things, something feels weird. You're just kind of in a rut. And that a lot of the things that we're talking about here, it's not fun when you're fighting with people. And it's like we know we've got this valuable company, or could be a valuable company, all this potential, but our biggest problems are ourselves or the people around us. And it's not really. I just think about it's almost like grasping onto things and just trying to will it into being, and it's just doesn't work at some point. And like I'm curious is because Brandon, go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I felt maybe a little taken aback because I have a degree in industrial engineering, so I look for efficiency, and I think when I look back at it, I was being very inefficient by allowing myself to have barriers, not understanding that I should have a different level of confidence, and just this process, and with having Stacy facilitate, ask, poke, prod, do the things she said, it definitely made me realize, like, I've been operating maybe in my work environment efficiently and doing things, but I haven't been using my mind as efficiently as I should have been. So I would say one of the big wins is being more efficient, which in effect is leveling yourself up as a leader.
Mm-hmm. Which is so super fascinating because like we all think that we're efficient, and you don't realize how inefficient you are when you've got all that baggage that you're trying to carry around. Connor, I'm curious because you said that you're now off on your own. Again, if people didn't catch that. So you went from kind of the dark spot to leaping out to be an entrepreneur, but now you're on your own, and that happened pretty fast. So how did that unfold, and what was the key thing that you unlocked to figure that out?
And this is outside of relationships with my family or friends. This is more so business oriented.
Yep. Yeah, because because you had a business partner that you decided to part ways with, or however you guys unfolded the relationship.
What were those three things you said about every entrepreneur?
Create wealth, enjoy work, and make an impact. It's like a Venn diagram where in the middle of that is I'm having a lot of fun. I'm intentionally trying to stay into the point where I'm enjoying work, creating wealth, and making an impact.
Absolutely. Stacey, do you want to jump in there? I saw you.
No, I will. Well, nope.
Well, I would say that having alignment with those three, Ryan, is giving me the energy to wake up every morning. Like it feels like I'm in football again. I continue to go back to that, but that's the most excited and the most energy I've ever had in my life. And that's how I feel, and nothing against my past business partner. Respect, super grateful for him. He helped me grow and taught me so much, but I think we just weren't in full alignment. So what Stacy allowed me to tap into is I knew the purpose I wanted to create, who I wanted to work with, what I wanted to do, and that didn't line up perfectly with my business partner, but I looked up to him. I didn't have the confidence to run the ship by myself, but Stacy really helped me tap into the next level of confidence and get out of my comfort zone and run an actual business. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. How about you, Rachel? With like you said, was it 11 stakeholders that you've given that you're contributing to? Stacy's 23. Because I can't imagine, aligning with what you want with all these stakeholders that are family members, business partners, executives. I mean, how did that all change as you started working on what clarification?
Well, I can say today that we have finally moved to the second generation, and we would have never got there if Stacy wouldn't insightfully picked out that you're always going to be aligned with the second generation because you are the second generation and you are a team. And when we, as a second generation, started moving in lockstep, the trust, the respect for each other, it is moving our company forward because, you know, in a family business, the other option is just to sell. But then you lose the fun, the impact that your business has on the communities you operate in. And so, so I feel blessed today that second generation is in lockstep. We are moving and, you know, we're still growing the business and moving it towards the third generation. And I guess if I had to think about one thing that changed our dynamics, because we've had several family business consultants, and I would say the one thing that stands out about Stacy is she wasn't afraid to get fired. You know, she pushed the limits, and she said what she needed to say in order to improve our growth. And she kind of puts her own, you know, business jeopardy on the line in the sense that not every owner and stakeholder is ready to hear what Stacy has to say. But I think that is what makes her stand out, is that she's not afraid to get fired.
That's amazing. Brandon, Levi, or Connor, any other experiences with Stacy about being told something that you knew probably could jeopardize Stacy's engagement, but knew that looking back, you were like, I needed to hear that? Don't all rush to it.
I think she told me that I was impulsive several times, and I guess, you know, I didn't like hearing it, but I guess I agree. Or there's an impulsive streak and impulsiveness, and it's helped from an awareness standpoint.
Oh, I love you, Levi.
Connor,
That's awesome.
Connor, you were gonna jump in?
That was awesome. You did not have to say that, and that was great. And it was not, there's no shame in it, right?
There was like an FU that I didn't say afterwards.
I remember, yeah.
Well, I want to go back even acknowledging that, and I well done, Stacy. But like Levi, even how natural you say it, you can just tell there's not a lot of bad emotions tied into it. Not triggered so much. Because not triggered. Yeah, exactly. Like so many times, I mean, I can tell many times that there would be a family member, if I called them impulsive, they would not react like you just did. They would have a little bit different of an edge to it.
It took her a while to get that processing to this point.
How about you, Connor?
Rewarding.
Well, what I was going to say about Dr. Stacy is I trusted her so much, and she was right so many times that I don't think there's one thing that she can say that would turn me off to
That's funny. We did have I would have said that too about you. I don't remember a time. Well, so that's the thing about, so this is an elite athlete, right? You know, if you're going to tell everybody where to go on a field, and then you're going to have the responsibility in less than 3 seconds to get rid of that ball, you got to have control over a lot of things, and you have to be liked by a lot of people. Connor is a very liked leader. He's humble. He's very powerful. He's incisive, and, you know, it's definitely not a leader from the front. It's definitely, we're all in it together. And so that's how I felt coaching him. We were always in it together. And I remember there was one call, you were going out one night and you had a decision to make. And I remember, there is some, in psychology as a trained, therapist, psychologist and therapist, there are some protocol, there's some rules, right? I don't have to abide by them so much because I'm not doing therapy, I'm coaching, but you never really want to tell anybody what to do. I mean, I do tell people what to do, Ryan, we've talked about that before, but usually it comes from after I figured out what they told me they want to do. And so I'm telling them what they told me they want. But, I remember I was thinking about a rule for Connor, and I was thinking, well, this could be a rule. And I was thinking, that doesn't make sense that way. So I'm carrying on a little bit, but I remember saying it this way, Connor. I'm trying to remember if I can say it out loud. Do you remember when we said, if you're an injured athlete, you don't go home on Thanksgiving and play touch football with your brothers and cousins who are 200 pounds. You're an injured, so you can't risk that injury. Even if you're healed, you can't play tackle football with people who really don't know how to tackle very well. And because you're not going to risk that injury. So that was an analogy I remember making when you were trying to make a decision about something. And I just remember, I remember beautiful insights a lot with you because you were so available. So I don't know what I'm saying, except that trust and not.
So you can poke him between the eyes with the truth, right?
Yeah. Hug him with the truth.
There you go.
He's very receptive. Connor's a great thrower and a great receiver. He's great.
Brandon, you raised your hand?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know that with Stacy there was, I look at it more, I don't think there was something that Stacy said that made me upset. I think it was more her push. There was a couple times where I feel like I had to tell Stacy that I've got 78 things going on that I'm trying to manage, and I think I need to retell you all those things. And it was like we had to get that out, and then then you could get better. It's like, okay, well, so let's start prioritizing some of these and put them down and reorganize. And so that was my experience.
I love it. And so I want to kind of tee up this kind of the big question from, when we started this series. Like, most people don't know who they are, what they want from their business, and why. I mean, it's so crazy how many people don't know those things. And I'm curious how you would answer that question now and how that's different than before. And so maybe we could, Rachel, you're nodding your head. So, who you are, what you wanted from your business, and why before and now, and how is it different now based on the work that you've done?
Yeah, so I really, I really wanted to carry on my dad's legacy. I really felt like I was, in a place to be the right person to lead the company, to lead the family, to bring in the next generation. And now, and I want the legacy to continue. I don't want to sell. And so I know that me leaving the company and just remaining a shareholder, and what Stacy told me when this happened, she's like, someday you will be more influential on your board than you could have been in management. And I'm like, just one of those things, can't see it now, but, hope that one day that comes true. And that has come true. And so I couldn't have pictured it before, but just based on Stacy's, behaviors, leaning into things, not controlling for every pothole, just letting it be, but knowing where the end focus was. I mean, more than just my family business, just kind of helps me, in all relationships and moving forward. So, and that result has happened. I mean, we're continuing on my dad's legacy, taking it to the third generation. And and it's exciting.
Did what you wanted change, or did you just get more clarity on how to actually get there? It's kind of related to that identity. I guess I love working for a family business. I miss the people I worked with. I came to realize that I cannot, I just couldn't do it. So as far as being in management and I don't know, I just couldn't do it. So I guess Stacy, you answered for me.
But remember too, I mean, it is, so there were two things. Rachel wanted something for herself in the business, to lead it and to feel like she was carrying on something that her dad and she loved together. And then the other thing was having it available to the next generation. And so I guess you could say forfeited or sacrificed or did what was necessary, let go of what she wanted for herself for the bigger opportunity, or not opportunity, but for the bigger,
for the end game,
to have the business for the next generation.
Yeah.
And to still influence the business. And it's still, and I think you said the other day, you've never been closer to your brothers than ever.
Sure.
And
my mom.
And your mom.
Yeah, and my mom. I mean, to my family. Yeah. Because of stepping away.
There was one thing Rachel did to stay close to her brothers, which was this high risk skiing thing.
Hellas skiing.
Ooh.
Yeah, and she did it because her brothers love that. They're incredible athletes too, and they're high risk people, and they can do it. So she went and did it with them to develop a closer relationship. It wasn't the best way to do it because it was damn scary.
Not a good
but
idea.
now it's an emotional connection that she has with them, and she loves them, and they are playful with each other, and it's just, and then she has it for the next generation, which is really brilliant.
Awesome.
And they want it.
I have never been heli skiing, but that is something is definitely on my bucket list. So Brandon and Levi, so who you are, what you wanted from your business, and why now versus before, how has that changed, and how has this process helped either bring more clarity to that, or help change the direction?
I would say that these are going to sound simple, but I was less confident. I didn't have as much clarity in my purpose. Stacy invited me on a retreat in December. It was with Dr. Dennis Rebello, and it was like Story Like You Mean It. And there's been so many moments since that retreat that I think about having to know your story and your purpose, and then make the rest of your life align with that. It's really significant. Make your legacy align with that, and how you work every day be in a way that is efficient for you. It aligns with who you are as a person. And I would say that that's been the biggest improvement from where I was a year ago when we started our coaching, or a little year and a plus some. And today I'm much more clear on that. And I understand it was important for me. I don't know that it's the same for everyone else, but it was really important for me to understand how I am this person that I am today. I really am focused on my vision and seeing things a certain way. And I need help sometimes executing and operating and carrying out that vision.
I love it. And I think, when you say it sounds simple, I think that's the whole point of this conversation. All this sounds simple, but it's not. It's extremely hard. And a lot of people try and do it on their own and just think that they're going to come up with that epiphany without any kind of, outside impact.
And I think the problem is it's because you won't. So hiring a coach is a couple things, or someone to help you. You're also making an investment. So you're committing to yourself. So you're already starting by taking action. And so it makes it harder for you to say, well, I'm going to slack off on this. Plus, Stacy doesn't let you. That's the other thing. She's a facilitator. So she pokes and prods, which is what's required. So I think that's a big part of it.
Just so you know, the poking and prodding is because I have fun. One thing that you guys are not saying is this, the accomplishments, the wins, the impasses, the insights, it is fun. Growth is fun. You get to a next level. It's like, it's not therapy in the sense that somebody's protecting you from falling and you're just getting back to baseline. You want a new baseline. You want to change. You want to be better. You want to run faster. You want to shave a second off your time. You want to be more efficient. You want to be more influential. I mean, it's getting you to you grow. You mature. There are three kinds of maturity, right? There's self-awareness, there's emotional maturity, and then there's emotional clarity. And those are there is such a thing as psychology. There is such a thing as yourself. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there to be worked on. So I would just say that it is your competitive advantage when you can be open and honest and when you want more for yourself, because every time you get more for yourself, there's a bigger piece of the pie for everybody else. It's just compounding. It's compounding value.
And that's a good, I think you just paved the way to, I want to hear your response to that, Levi, because you talked about the one-way street led you to Stacy and you wanted certain things. So, did what you wanted from the business and who you are change as you gone through this process, or did it accelerate your ability because of the clarity and I guess because of the clarity?
Accelerate my ability.
Because you said you knew what you wanted. It sounded like you knew what you wanted. I'm curious, did what you want change, or is it a bit more clear now on how to actually get there? Because you said the road led to Dr. Stacy.
Brandon interject or fact check me, but I think it made both of us really rethink exactly what is it that you want. Do you really want what you want? Oh my God, has that crucible? I mean, I feel like I've been in that crucible for like a year, and I want out. It's tiring as hell. Oh, I mean, it's a good thing, and you want to be out just like you want to stop doing push-ups. So,
So did you have any kind of like did what you want from the business change a little bit? I mean, like, how did you guys go through that process of actually figuring that out? And was it like more financial or was it emotional? Like,
I think we've done, like monthly and sometimes semi-monthly meetings where you're having conversations, and at first it was more emotional based, and as of late it's more mechanical because we've negotiated the choppy as hell waters of the emotional, and she's helped us process our emotions to calm the water. I think certainly I thank both of us, but for me, yes, what I want from the business has subtly changed as a result of this reflection. And it was kind of a dumb initial kind of like, I want out, I want distance, and I don't really know what I want. I want my hand off of this hot oven or stove.
Ooh,
and
that was a good analogy.
To a place of like, this is what I want. And then we also don't have to look at each other anymore and say, you're in the way of it, or you're preventing me from getting it, or why are you trying to ruin my life? When I don't think I'm trying to ruin his life, and Brandon's not ever tried to ruin my life.
Brandon,
there's something
smiling.
really.
You want to add to that?
Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
No, I think that's great. I'm just smiling in affirmation. I think it's great. It's truthful. It's good.
The ecosystem has 3 first teams. So there are 3 circles in the ecosystem, as Rachel was just describing, 3 primary circles, and each one of those circles has a first team. And first team in the business is often your management. The first team in your family are the key stakeholders in the family: your brothers, your parents, the guy you bought the company from, your kids, whoever it is, your siblings, your in-laws, and then there's a first team in the wealth ownership circle, which is oftentimes the advisors, the service providers who you pay for, or your board, or investors, for example. And so Levi, we really did have to figure out what they really wanted, but we promised Levi that the work was going to be towards getting Brandon and the whole first team. We had an accountability team that involved their spouses, and we did make a promise, and we had to go through a certain series of steps to make it fair for Brandon to catch up to what Levi wanted, and everybody to catch up. And so I think for Levi, the most beautiful thing that we got done with Levi is, he has better relationships with everybody in his family. Almost everybody. We're getting there, more and more. And so that is, if there's anything I could have imagined great for Levi from this process, is that. Levi is a family man, and he loves his family, and sometimes he's cranky, and so he's not always easy to be, and so now he's not so cranky, and he's gentle, and he said softer, and he's open, and I think it's just, I don't think that was necessarily written into this is one of the goals, literally. So Brandon's better at business, and Levi's better at love, and it's good.
That is awesome. So for time, I'll keep us rolling here because I could have gone down a lot of rabbit holes on that one, but I appreciate that. So Connor, I'm curious, for you, I'm going to frame it like maybe a question a little bit different out of my own curiosity is, what you want from the business and why. Like I can see a lot of times where someone that's insanely talented in one area that has their identity, tied into a sport like that, overcompensate and then make the business everything in their life. And I don't know if you've done that or not. I'm just saying, how is what you're planning different now because of how your perspective is?
Well, let's see. As you asked that question when we went around, the first thing, and I think the most concrete example in terms of what I want out of the business is financial. And it started off when I worked with Stacy. My one financial goal was to equal the full-time job that I had at the time, which was $60,000. Let's be transparent. That was the goal. And once we realized, what it took to get there, that's when I took that leap. And then Stacy just joined me on a call with a financial advisor a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about strategy and goals, and Stacy actually first threw out the number of 12 figures, and I was like, Stacy, I don't think that's the right figure that we're going for. But no, we nailed it on 8 figures as the goal. So going in 2.5 years from a goal of $60,000 to now having a goal of 8 figures down the road, that just shows the impact that Stacy has created, but much more importantly, the actual work she's helped clarify. A few years back, I was working with anybody that needed a website or social media, and now where I focus is working with purpose-driven people, which mainly is keynote speakers right now, and in purpose-driven organizations. And a concrete example is Paul Epstein, one of my keynote speaker clients and partners, just texted me during this podcast and said he booked 2 keynotes, and me being a small part of allowing him to share his message, because his message is all about helping others find their why. He was the why coach at the San Francisco 49ers for many years, and he helps people tap into their purpose and truly impacts their life. So being able to be, a cheerleader for folks like that are doing good in this world is, it means the world to me. And then in terms of long-term impact and going back to being an athlete, I do have aspirations to help people that went through very similar situations to me, losing a sport, feeling lost, especially in college when there's a handful of distractions, to say the least, that you can go down. So being able to just help people and help them find whatever their next sport is in the business world would be, a lifelong dream of mine.
I love it.
Just one second, Ryan. When I often text when I have inspiration. So I've been coaching professional athletes a little bit since the beginning of COVID, and I test out my ideas with Connor. And one idea we used, and then we keep testing out, is when for example, an athlete or when somebody is healing health? Is healing health? And so we grappled with that for a long time, and not for a long time. We figured out pretty quickly that healing is health. So you were healthy long before you were more recovered. And so healing and health. And the most recent one you and I talked about was that athletes are very disciplined, right? They're great with discipline and routine, but they're not necessarily, and this is a generalization, but they're not as trained or as good maybe in their personal lives to understand limitations. So discipline versus or juxtaposed being able to set limits. And so we were grappling with that, and that matters to some of the athletes I'm coaching, because they're very good with discipline and routine, but they're not very good with setting limits. And so Connor is always a resource for those kinds of things for me. Actually, I mean, it's true of all 5 of us do it really well together. It's great relationships.
So I love it, and I want to go around and it's kind of a final just word from each of you, and then we can open it up if we want to finalize any kind of group discussion. But I wanted to for the people listening in. I mean, so many people think that they, as business owners, same thing with the athletes. That is a great correlation. We think we can do this on our own, and people will just denial. It's ridiculous. I can just do it on my own. So the 2 questions are: What would you say to the people that are trying it on their own that would lead them to be more curious? And then the other follow-up question is, what does the word intentional mean for you? I think it's a good kind of 2-part question. So I want to start with you, Levi.
I'm still largely in the camp of thinking I can do it all myself. But what I feel like I've learned, because I was dragged into it, is you're just better. You can't live in your own head and believe that you can do it yourself and that you know best, no matter whether you're 15, 35, 50, whatever, at your own peril. Anybody listening to this, just answer that or respond to that. You're sure you know best. You're sure that you're never wrong, and you're sure that you're 100% accurately looking at your situation and that no one's ever been in it before. I mean, you've got resources, use them.
I love it. So let's keep doing. I want to do that question first, and then we'll do the round robin on the intentional. So for people, Rachel, to you next. So for people that are in denial and that are the skeptics, what would you say to them?
Well, it's the same thing I tell other people just about therapy. If you had cancer, you wouldn't try to treat it yourself. And mental health and your confidence level, your own self-esteem is as important as going to a surgeon to repair a broken leg. So why not, and your psyche to me is your biggest limiting factor. So if you were going to go to a doctor for these other things, why wouldn't you do it to be the best version of yourself?
Connor, to you.
Yeah, mine will be quick. I think everybody can be successful without a coach, without a mentor, without a therapist, with no help. You can be successful to a certain extent. But if you truly want to reach your full potential, maximize that potential, you need somebody like Dr. Stacy by your side.
That's a good testimony right there. Brandon.
You've had a lot of coaches.
Yeah, I think it's a lot what everyone else said. Stacy is a professional, so this is what she studies and this is what she does. So you are going to get that. I agree with what Connor said. You're not going to achieve greater gains faster without employing or deploying something in your arsenal, a tool to do better. I think there's the analogy of being inside your own house, so you don't know what you don't know. So speaking for myself, I feel like it's something that I realized I was working really, really hard in this office, in this building, and I didn't realize the siding needed to be replaced and the shingles, and then I'm going to have a leaky roof, and then I'm going to have flooding in my office. You're working, so you can't see what you can't see, and sometimes you really need help unearthing that to look at things differently, have different perspectives.
Great analogy.
And it's fun to do things together. It's just fun. It's fun to do it together. It's not fun to do it alone. It's fun when you have somebody validating. This is fun for me right now. This is my coaching. I'm getting validated and I'm thinking, if I'm this good now, just think about how much better I can become if I pay more attention to, I do have my own coach, but if I pay attention to more of these ideas and the impact that it has. It's fun to do it with somebody, and yeah.
Stacy, what is that aiming at dusk? What is the saying that I love? You just told me last time.
Do you like that? So most leaders, the ecosystem gives leaders visibility into their ecosystem, and there are 23 universal relationships. But if you can't see everything, so if you think so when you make decisions, you're mostly shooting in the dark, but you're not really shooting at the dark. You're shooting at dusk when you think you can see everything, but you really can't. And I think that's what the blind spots are. And I'm glad you asked me to do that. I love saying that. You're shooting at dusk when you think you can see everything, but you really can't.
High confidence that what I'm shooting at is what I think it is, and it's not. So let's go back around the other direction. So what does the word intentional mean to you, Brandon?
I think it's as simple as purposefully doing something. So if you want intentional growth, you have to do the work first to figure out your purpose. And then I'll go back to saying you can get all your weight behind what it is you're supposed to be doing. And for me, part of my vision and what I want to do is create leaders, take down barriers for the people that are in my ecosystem, that I work with, that are in my family.
That's amazing. I love it. Connor, to you.
So I just mentioned Paul Epstein in his new book is exactly what I think being intentional is. It's all about head, heart, hands. So it's connecting your mindset to what you're passionate about and taking meaningful action. So I think aligning your head, heart, hands is what it means to be intentional.
Look at you just dropping these phrases.
Shout out to Paul.
I can understand why Stacy likes to use you as a guinea pig on things. I appreciate it, Connor. Rachel, what does the word intentional mean to you?
I think it is, I was thinking about Stacy's word fun, and I don't think that coaching sometimes is fun, but what I do think it is an achievement after it's over. And so intention for me just means continuing to move forward, continuing to say yes to opportunities and seeing where those lead me.
Levi.
I think of intention as not accidentally finding yourself in some room, but having spent a lot of time to reflect on why you want something, you really want it, and then thinking long and hard about how you're going to go about getting it. And I feel like your level of success is magnified 10 times, and it's a nicer ride for everybody, and you get there faster, all of it.
This is awesome. Awesome definitions of all this. So, Stacy, I want to end with you. You've gotten to say what the word intentional means to you a couple of times, but I want to hear it again. If you got a different version or if you're consistent.
No, I'm consistent. It's purposeful action. I really like when everything is aligned and you are focused on the climb and you're eager to stay on the path of health, and that that encompasses all parts of yourself and your life. So it's really aligning everything towards growth and health.
This is awesome. And so I just wanted to say from my parting words is like, this has been so fun because honestly, everybody, like, it takes a lot of effort to come in, especially get in front of other people and share the journey of, going, admitting that we didn't have it all figured out and that we still don't. And it's okay. And especially as leaders and entrepreneurs, everybody thinks we have it all figured out. So there's a lot of people that just totally BS their way through it. And it's just really refreshing talking to people. Hey, I needed some help. I'm looking to accomplish some things. It might change and I'm willing to do hard work to get there. It's not every day I get to do that. So I appreciate everybody's time. And one last thing as we go around, best place to find you and get a little bit more information. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Stacy, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, I'm going to tell you where you can find me, but I want to thank you, Ryan. Also, you have an audience, a listeners who are here because just like Brandon, Levi, Connor, and Rachel, and me and you, we really are on the path and we're pursuing growth for ourselves and everybody we touch. Because when you run a business, you really can't look over your shoulder and expect somebody else to get it done. It's your world, it's your economy, it's your company. So I want to thank you for inviting us to speak to your listeners. And we believe in your listeners and we know we're all on the same path. And I would say it's very easy to find me. If you know how to spell my name, you can find me on LinkedIn and you can find me on my website, Stacy Feiner at stacyfeiner.com is my email and stacyfeiner.com is my website. And you can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And then as we go around, we're going to put everything in the show notes too. So if you just want to say LinkedIn or whatever, the best contact or your URL for your website, whatever is best for you. So Levi, you first.
This is my email address, levihagan@gmail.com. It's awesome. My personal, it's my non-work.
Appreciate it. And then Rachel.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Stacy said, Ryan. Thank you so much. And yeah, you're doing great work and it's so needed out there for all of these businesses. And you can also find me on LinkedIn.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Connor.
Yeah, and I have to echo both of Stacy and Rachel that I've watched a lot of podcasts, listening to a lot, but Ryan, you have a special gift at facilitating. I really enjoy listening to you speak, so I appreciate the time. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, and my last name is Krasancic, Krizancic, and my company website is goodwolfmarketing.com.
Appreciate the compliments, Connor. I appreciate it. And then Brandon.
I want to say that I'm not going to echo anything just because I want to say that. I can tell you, Ryan, that I did listen to a couple podcasts and we shared the Will Pemble one. That was really fun to listen to. So I was at a convention and I just flew back in this morning, and I will tell you, it was with other business people, and I recommended your podcast to like 3 or 4 people. So that says enough.
Nice.
Yeah. So this has been enjoyable. I like it. I like listening to the way you question and interview people. It's been good. You can find me at bjohnson@Liquid Freight, and our website is liquidfreight.com. So thank you very much.
Everybody, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I didn't expect that affirmation, but I'm an affirmation junkie. It's my love language, so what the hell? I'll take it.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Love you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.